Well, hi, today is the 2nd of August, and we're here with Advancing Nurse Coaching Office Hours, the follow-up Q&A from last week's webinar. And we're delighted to be here answering questions. In fact, today we have a special guest who's come all the way from Europe, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, and we're thrilled to have Tanya with us today. And Teresa and I and Tanya were just talking about a wonderful trip that Teresa has made to France, and now she's back. So we're delighted to be here with you today. And as you know, we're able to answer your personal questions anytime. Just contact us on our Calendly link at the bottom of your emails, or look at our website, or send us an email directly. And the easy website is to find Nurse Coaching, just those two words, nursecoaching.com. Well, I don't know, Teresa, do you want to just give a quick run through the slides as a review from last week? Would that be beneficial?
Well, it might, but it is recorded and it is on YouTube, the whole presentation, so that might be redundant a little bit, but we can certainly talk about the highlights. Anyone has questions about what is nurse coaching, specifically what our program is like, I think bears talking about, because we are completely different than other nurse coaching programs, because we only focus on one thing, and it's how the mind works. How do we actually create our reality, how we decide to create changes in our life, and what does that mean for us, not just on a physical level, but a mental level and spiritual level. So it truly is holistic. Mind, body, and spirit is what we talk about, and it all comes to us through the 3 principles, and we'd love to share more about that as a way to navigate life.
I think of it, I've found myself more recently describing it as the principles of health and resilience, because to me, including health in that really connects us to our purpose. And we're so eager to share this with the world through our licensed health professional peers. For nursing to be able to have this knowledge initially, to bring it out through all of the work that we do, and nursing, because we are 14 million worldwide, touches more lives than any other profession. So something as new as principles of health and resilience, the new terminology, which has always been here, it has always been the way that the human mind works, is able to be spoken in today's language much more understandably. And for us to be sharing it professionally and offering, well, nursing is the very first and only profession to offer a professional national board certification in coaching. So we are at the forefront of change, not just for our profession, but for the change in the culture of our nation, and the change of the culture of our world as a civilization. And I am just so grateful to be here today, and delighted that you joined us on the recording if you weren't able to make the live presentation.
I had a coaching call yesterday, and one of the things people always ask is, how do you do this kind of coaching? How do you do it? How does understanding how your mind works and how these principles, these foundational principles, help us to not just navigate change, but create a state of health and well-being within a person, and even more than that, to transform lives. And so we were talking, and I'll call her Carol, but she was like, so I had this experience about a friend of mine, and so they know each other very well, and they were talking about a boyfriend that her daughter, the father did not like. He's like, he can't come to my house. And so they were that was the topic. And so they were talking of, she's like, and she found herself saying, well, that's his responsibility to own how he thinks about this circumstance in his life. Even though it's for his daughter, it's his home, and even if she doesn't agree, she wanted to fix it. Like, we can't be that mean to him, and all these other things that come up, like, challenging circumstances, especially with your daughter, who's a young lady, and allowing them to have that choice. But there were just so many red flags for the father. He's like, no, not my kid. And so in his way, he was controlling the circumstance based on his way of thinking. And in my mind, certainly out of his love for his daughter. And the mother, his wife, was like, we need to fix this. And so the coach said, what is there to fix? He's doing the best he can with the thinking that he's doing. You have no business inside his thinking. And she said it just kind of stopped her, like, well, yeah, I know, but we still have to do something about it. And so the subject came around of individual differences, separate realities of navigating this life. You can see how conflict would happen. But in this case, when she said, you each have a separate reality from each other dealing with this circumstance, and nothing is wrong. And so they continued to talk, and she called her the next day, and I'm not sure what you said to me, but I feel very good about what's happening with this circumstance. They each, in their own separate reality, get to decide what to do based on what's showing up. And I thought, that's how you do it. You become part of the conversation. You know for a fact where your feelings are coming from, your thoughts, your feelings creates your experience, and you can't do it for someone else. You can't change them. You can't tell them how to feel. You can't tell them what to do, because they're using their own internal wisdom based on what's showing up for them. And it was really fun, because we were talking about it, and I said, that's what coaching is. You point people to their own innate wisdom, their own innate health, and they get to come from there. And when they know that that's how the system is set up, it dropped the judgment of what his choice was in that circumstance. And she literally said, I had new eyes to see the situation. And I don't know. I don't know these people, but I could almost see, like, the conflict that had potential there wasn't a conflict. It was just a different way of understanding life. And even our children, we hope that they won't make poor choices, but holding that space and loving someone and allowing them to see it is a completely different way to navigate.
So it's open for discussion now, and they
Mhm.
can communicate, talk about it, and they understand that each person has their own point of view.
Right.
Wow.
But we talked about, she's like, because there's so much about coaching, like powerful questions and the framework and, all of the
Goals.
how-tos. And while that can be helpful, and certainly we need containers to kind of keep us on track, because coaching is an intentional conversation. It's not designed to be, well, it could be, but the intention of coaching is not friendship or agreeing or helping someone to let them just vent. It's
It,
for a purpose.
and it is a therapeutic relationship.
Yes.
And I'm really fond of pointing out that the most important person, this is a bit of a shocker, the most important person in coaching is the coach, because they are the person that's trained. If it weren't for your training as a coach, you wouldn't be having that conversation. And it is therapeutic. We are at work in our lives doing coaching as nurses.
Yeah, we're the catalyst for change. We hold that space for people. We come up, next to, maybe even a little bit behind, and allow them to find their own way. And that comes through coaching conversations, but through the coach's training of being able to not solve people's problems for them. Like Helen Erickson said, Dr. Helen Erickson, she goes, there's no fun in that. Watching them see it for themselves, realize that this system only works one way. And when we know that for a fact, we have something that we can use every moment, no matter what's going on in our life, whether we're at work, whether we're taking care of our children, whether we're spending some quiet time, deciding what it is we want and need in our life. It's nice to hear other people's opinions, but we don't really take those very seriously. We take it seriously when it comes from us.
Maybe that topic about quiet time is something that we could explore today. Nurses are so well versed in offering compassion to others, and it always seems to be involved in our work as nurses. We have compassion for our patients, our clients, our colleagues. And there's one person that seems to often be overlooked in all of this. And one way to go about it is to actually have, well, we call it a self-care plan. It sounds pretty cut and dried, but it's actually a really, really fun exercise. But the bottom line is compassion and allowing space for yourself. And maybe since Teresa has just returned from her trip to the other side of the world and back, she might share some of her perspective on that with us. Finding space.
Well, finding space, there were many things that I wasn't looking for when I went on vacation. And it started with like, oh, maybe I don't want to go, because I have a habit of liking to control my world and predictability.
Her internet, it freezes occasionally.
Yes, it does. And
speaking of predictability,
right. A lot of tension and thinking, and the first night we didn't get in until late, and then we had the 5-course dinner, so it was midnight before we got done, and sat in the little courtyard at the little table, and we were just all visiting, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And they're all laughing and giggling and telling stories, and of course not everyone speaks English, and I don't speak French, and yet there was that feeling of camaraderie, of excitement, anticipation. And when I woke up the next morning, I was like, wow, I'm here. I'm actually here. And we began our little adventure at a biker rally, of all things. And so we went straight to that. And the very first night, she goes, I want you to drive my car. Can you drive a stick shift? And I'm like, okay. So she makes me drive her car to the event 20 minutes away. I've never driven on French roads. So we have all these roundabouts, and I'm like, I'm never going to find my way. And so the next day she wanted to ride her motorcycle. So I had to drive there and back by myself. And initially there was a lot of thinking about that. And then I was like, nothing is going to happen. And so I drove straight to where the GPS told me, and then I couldn't find the house. So for 20 more minutes, I'm driving up and down this road looking for the entrance. And I got in and I sat down and I went, I did it. Look, I did it. And the next morning she was talking about how much she appreciated everything that she had, you know, her house, her yard, you know, she's very, and the food. And I sensed in her this like deep appreciation of life. And I didn't expect to find that. And so as time went on, I thought that was just like a one morning thing. No, it was an everyday thing. And I found myself appreciating the moments, like driving to all these little markets on top of hills and walking up and down mountains. And I started noticing the little things. And I began seeing what she was seeing. And in the principles, we always talk about this feeling. Like there was this deep feeling of love and appreciation. And even though she spoke better English than me, or better French, she spoke enough English that I could understand her between the French. And so we built this relationship in a very short period of time. And I had this realization that I hadn't been being as nice to myself as I thought I was. Like kindness is something we give to others. And I realized it was something I wanted for myself. And so I lived in that feeling, like just appreciating the things that were around and the people and the smells and the sights. And it still continues. Like I see this new perspective of my work, of the people in my life, of my own home. I came home and took out 8 bags of things I don't use. Trash. And I thought, how did I have the energy to do that? And the realization was, as my thinking had cleared and my desire for what I want to bring into my life became more clear, I didn't have room in my environment for those things. And so I have steadily been taking things out to the trash. And all of a sudden my home is opening up. And I walked into my kitchen yesterday and I went, I love my kitchen. And I thought, how does quieting your mind bring forth this kind of feeling? And then I realized it's the principles at work in my life. I am that, and people don't know it. And that was the overall experience of seeing what you are creating in your world is truly made up by you. Nothing changed. My house didn't change. You know, the people in my life didn't change, but I see them through a new lens. And that was very powerful to notice. That's transformation. That gets us the less stress in our life, the improved relationships, the ability to love and appreciate what is as you're creating a life that you want. What do you want? How do you want to live? How would you like to communicate in your life that brings about this kind of appreciation, and know that it's literally one thought away? I plan to take a 2-week vacation every year.
Most people bring back a souvenir when they travel, but Teresa brought back a whole new perspective on what she knows and what she does and how she works. But it's at a different level now. It's at a level of comfort and ease and joy that was not known to her previously because she's seen something more. It's like unpeeling the layers of the onion. We see more and more clearly as we get to the heart of the matter.
Well, and I think it's difficult for us to get past our inner intellect, like in trying to do something and leaning into the experience of it. There's a very big difference in that. In our coursework, we always talk about it's beyond the words, it's beyond the intellect. It's in the insight into something that gives us a deeper knowing or a deeper experience. And truly, in this kind of coaching, that's what we're pointing people to, their own innate wisdom, their own health. If you ask someone and speak with them long enough, they'll tell you what they need. We've known that forever. And then we never take the time to do it. It's not built into our system at the moment. It's, I don't know, I guess in a way it's trying to laser focus to the computer charting to capture all the data, but we're missing the most important part. The individual's perspective, their why, your why of why you're doing the work that you're doing, and how do you want to show up to create this vision that you have for yourself, and maybe even the vision of how you would like to help other people. This work is the most powerful work I've ever done in my life. I've been a nurse for a very long time and helped a lot of people through many difficult circumstances. And if I had known this at the beginning of my career, I can't imagine. It would have just, I don't know. I can't pretend to know because I'm not there, but I know that it would have been different in a good way.
Well, and we've often given lip service to the kinds of things that we're talking about now, but our lives are experiential. We only live our lives through our experience. And it's actually a sense that we have. We can talk about our connection to the universal understanding. But until we can actually feel that connection, it's almost as though if we had a piece of paper and we drew a line down the middle. On one side, we could have, let's say, a topic called resilience. And on the other side, we could have a topic called resilience. And on one side, we're recognizing our power of thought. And on the other side, we don't know, we're not recognizing our power of thought that connects us to universal wisdom. And the experience of resilience, well, yeah, on one side of the page, it's a list of things to do. And on the other side of the page, it's the experience of being resilient.
I was on a call with a governor of North Carolina, anyway, we were talking about resilience on the webinar, and she said, resilience appears every time you take a step. There's nothing new here. She's like, if you're taking the next step, you are resilient. And then she said, but the difference is knowing that it's something you are and not somewhere to get to.
Oh, beautiful, beautifully said.
And yeah, she said it way better than me. But it just struck me like, wow, because I think there's some people who have a bad taste in their mouth about the word resilience. I've heard in some, Facebook groups or even on some webinars that I don't ever want to hear that word again. And I remember thinking it's because you think you don't have it. Like it's something that you have to do to get it instead of the fact that you already are. And I did a presentation to my husband's military reunion guys. And I had this big thing planned. Like I was going to, talk about resilience and the principles and, all of these things. And what ended up coming out was if you weren't resilient, you wouldn't be here, because they had all gone to war. They had all faced their own mortality. They were engaged in a battle for, I can't remember, several hours, 18, 24 hours, something like that. And they were basically told they were going to die. So when they came back, they didn't die. So now what? So many have a lot of stories about that time. And I wish I could remember everything I said. It was only about 15 minutes. But one of the young men came up afterwards. He was the youngest one that went over there. So he was about 10 years younger than most of them. And he said, I always love it when you talk like that. He says, it gives me hope that I'm going to be okay.
Oh my, Teresa.
And I thought, when you show someone that it's okay to have all the feelings that you have, there's nothing wrong. They're just an indication of how you're experiencing your thinking. And if you ever notice, your thinking never stays the same. We have what we call good days or bad days, good moments or bad moments, but it's always fluid. It never stays as one thing. And that was the part that helped him. Like, I can be okay even in this feeling, because I know it's, number one, he realized it wasn't happening to him now, and that it was going to get better. And over the years, I have watched him get better. When he first came, he wouldn't hardly speak to anyone. He was very closed off. And now he actually came up to talk to me, which was a whole new thing. And so I know that no matter how you share this knowledge, once experienced for yourself, you can never lose it. And the way you help people completely changes. It's not a prescription. It's not even a description. It's just how it works. And there's nothing to do about it. It's like gravity. We don't have to think about how to use it. But from this perspective of knowing how something works and how that same something doesn't work, now gives us a discriminator to create a self-care plan that is self-correcting and helps us in ways that we don't know till it shows up. But it does show up, and it is transformational.
We've often talked about the past, and here it is coming up again in this moment, speaking about what has happened to an individual historically. I think it's worth mentioning here that we only bring the past to the present moment through our thoughts, through our memories, which are thoughts. And that past no longer exists, except as we choose to bring it to our present moment awareness. I would love to quote a very wise man who had an experience of enlightenment. He said that there's nothing outside that can harm us. There's nothing outside that can help us, because there is no outside. We have within ourselves the power of thought, which connects us to universal wisdom, which is our guiding light in every moment of our lives. And we can choose to be there or here. One of our nurse practitioners had a beautiful little 80-year-old something lady who was coming to her endocrinology clinic. She had lost 4 family members within a 3-month period of time. And Jan just sat with her quietly and said, you can't be in 2 places at once. Do you want to live? And the lady said, well, of course I do. I'm here, aren't I? And Jan said, You can't be in two places at once. You can't be here now taking care of yourself and living in the past. She'd been forgetting to take her blood pressure medicine and having a hard time remembering to do her blood sugar checks and insulin. So as she saw that, she just got fire in her eyes. And the patient said to the nurse practitioner, "Do you mean to tell me that I am not taking care of myself because I'm thinking about them? I can't bring them back, but I have the rest of my life to live." So 3 months later, she comes back. She has more blood sugar checks than she had in the previous 3 years, and an A1C that was ideal for her. That is the power of nurse coaching. A 20-minute encounter. But she saw something so clearly that it changed her life.
I do love that story. You know, that there's so many of them now, empowering people to take the reins of their own health. And you know, nurses have this knowledge base that we don't give ourselves credit for. And I love the quote Lynn always says, but it's a Florence Nightingale quote, that nursing is knowledge. It's the knowledge of how to put the body into a state of health. It's knowledge that everyone ought to have. And I think, yeah, because I would bet most of our friends and family who are not nurses have no idea what we do. And nurse coaching will shine the light on those skills. And it's not an us against the medical system. We certainly need that. There are breakthroughs every day that are helping people. But this aspect of human care is nursing. And it's knowledge. We have knowledge from both worlds. Something that gives us that innate wisdom, that intuition, that sixth sense of knowing how to help people. And it makes us perfect coaches. We've been doing it our whole life. If we've ever tried to help people beyond the patient education forms that we give them, and I know everyone who's a nurse or even a healthcare provider does that, that's the aspect that this program deals with the best. What's your why? What do you want to do to help yourself, your clients, and then in turn let them empower themselves? It's
Was
truly the only thing that ever has.
was so interesting listening to Margaret Erickson the other day. She's the director of the American Holistic Nurses Certification Corporation, which offers the certification test for nurse coaching. At any rate, she was talking about one of her clients, a Native American, who was on insulin, and years down the road, they'd been asking him, are you checking your blood sugar? Are you giving yourself your insulin? Oh, yes. Only to come to find out years later that he had no electricity, that there was no refrigeration in the house, that his insulin that he was being so careful with was unrefrigerated and of no benefit to him. Did she listen? Did any of the other healthcare professionals hear what his circumstances were in regard to how he needed to care for himself? A detail, a small detail, a minor inconvenience, no electricity. Everything in the life of that and health of that man. We are always open to offering our help Are we open to listening? Are we open to being there when what they have to share with us is the most important part of the puzzle? So, as Teresa says, we're walking alongside and a little bit behind because it's their goals that are being worked on. And we're there with them, pointing the way and listening as they discover their own answers to their issues. It's the easiest work that we've ever done and the most rewarding. Nursing is truly coming into its own as we redefine nursing and the work that nurses do. In fact, it was the year 1870 when Florence Nightingale told us it will be 150 years before people will see the kind of nursing that I envision. Well, that year was 2020, and everything changed.
There's never been a better time to be a nurse than right now. And I think everyone feels that of their generation, but
Well, maybe we could talk about generations. It was interesting. Teresa and I got to participate in a lecture not long ago about generational perspectives, and Teresa has a beautiful way of explaining her perspective on this. So I'll let her speak.
well, it's funny because they went through the baby boomers, and I don't even know all of the different ones, millennials and Gen Zs and whatever we have out here. Each generation has a name, And my realization is it's not a generation gap, it's a knowledge gap. How much do we want to hang on to our past because it's ours and not really see the perspective or the value of the new people coming into this world? They have no idea where we've been. Our children have no idea where we've been. We try to tell them, but you can't do that. You know, my grandchildren were born into a world that, all of the now AI and phones and tablets and games and computers, it's just everyday life for them. They have no idea what it's like to put in a cassette tape into a little recorder and listen to it from there. That was my kids' generation. And I think loving and embracing each new generation is to everyone's benefit. I can remember when I was 10 maybe, and we were at my dad's boss's house. He had a annual party. He had a park across the street, and he had this big barbecue, and we'd go over to his house and swim in the swimming pool. And his son, who was 16, so he's only 6 years older than me, and he comes in the door and his hair's down to his shoulders. This is the early 70s. And his mom was like, "I told you not to come home till you cut your hair." And he was like, "I'm not cutting my hair." And so he promptly left. And I remember thinking, I like that hair, So here we are in this little dynamic of trying to form relationships with people based on our own personal perspective of what we're trying to hang on to. And I saw it very clearly when my children became teenagers and they wanted to listen to the new music. And I was, oh my gosh, we can't listen to that. I have no idea what this is about. Well, it was in good intention. I wanted to protect my children from this awful music that, oh, by the way, I now listen to and love. But I wished I would have known to allow people to be where they are, even our children, and to embrace what's new and exciting for them. There's things for us to learn there. And then once we're able to listen, we can impart knowledge because our communication will be better. Our ways of being around each other will be better. that's why I wish I knew this before when I was raising children, because so many things would have changed. Um, but I have to say, the relationships that we have now are just amazing. So
Well, we're closing getting closer to the end of our hour, but Tanya, thank you so much for joining us. This really is a Q&A. So any thoughts, inspirations, ideas, insights, questions?
Thank you too. Well, I had like some comments, but I didn't want to interrupt you because it was very interesting to listen to. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to say that I was just thinking about um like we as nurses, because I wasn't aware that coaching is not about to to help them find a solution, but is actually to allow people to use their power of thought to find their own health, find their own solution. And I can see that that is also maybe more, how you say, it has a bigger progress maybe to for the person to heal and to develop in life by not telling them how to do, or maybe you should do like this or maybe you should do like that, but let them kind of find their own solutions. And I can see that is, I think it gives a better result in the end. Then I was just thinking, when someone is telling me to do something, I am quite of the opposite. Then I don't want to do it. So, and my kids as well. When I tell them to do something, they don't want to do it. So, yeah, it makes sense.
I
Yeah.
think it's funny that we're universal in that. Oh, you're telling me to do what? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Even if it's good for me.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that's
Yeah.
why this coaching is holding that space and saying, this is just one possibility. You can take it or leave it. If you find value, but being unattached to outcomes, your outcomes as the coach, like you said you wanted to be over here, but you didn't take the steps to do that. Well, why is that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would guarantee 99.9% of the time, the goal changed.
Mm,
When you have insight, something you thought was important or that you needed to go do or create, whatever it is,
mhm,
the goal changed. Maybe it's not even something they chose to do anymore.
mm,
And maybe they found a better way to do it for them.
yeah. Yeah. So um, I say that the goal is actually to, like, not have this, like, we as human, I think that we as human, we like control, to have control about the situations, the known situation, or having, tell people maybe to do as you want them to do, because that gives you, yeah, it feels better, because then you have the control. But we should to that that control put that control aside, and because, yeah, like, they have it inside, the answers, and they are everyone is a unique person, and yeah, it's everyone is having the solution somewhere.
Well, it's so beautiful. Especially in healthcare, you can
Yeah.
see how we've done this for years, and We
Yeah.
think we're doing them a favor and doing it right and pointing out exactly the steps that they need to take. But
Yeah.
if they can't see it for themselves, they can't take those next steps. So we're in the illusion of having control. We never have been in control. The client has always been in control. And we're just coming to realize that now.
Yeah.
And being able, as their team member, to walk alongside them
Yeah.
rather than standing over them, shaking our finger, telling them you've got to do this. It's never worked. It's a part of the huge reason why we're in the situation we're in regard to healthcare today.
Yeah.
People, I think one of the gifts of the pandemic, quite literally, has been that people are realizing now that the ball is in their court. It is they who are responsible for their health. And it doesn't matter what the National Health Service says. If they can't or won't comply, they have to find their own answers. And that has to be okay with the healthcare system. We have to come together with our people, with our population, our public, for them to show us where we need to be now, because everything has changed. The structure is no longer the structure that it was previously. All of the cracks of the system have been exposed. And it's up to us as healthcare workers to build a new system that includes the client.
Yeah.
I think when we empower patients to listen to that internal guidance, that all of these amazing treatments that are out here, they find the one that's right for them because it resonates with them. And that's different than prescribing a treatment for someone. Someone who's informed about what the choices are, that comes from this internal innate wisdom, knowing that putting a body into a state of health, no matter what we choose to do, will be beneficial to a human person. Well, to any living thing, really. I mean, sometimes I think about it like fish. If you put them in a tank full of cloudy water and no nutrients, they start sloughing their skin and they're like, oh, these fish, and then you give them all the right things and they just thrive and their colors come back and the water clears up. We are no different. The environment that we live in, also known as mind, thought, and consciousness, this is how we create, does the same thing based on our level of conscious state. Based on the level of our thinking is what we will be experiencing in our body.
Well, I guess at this point, I'll say that we will be planning to get back together again. I believe it's the 24th of August. No, the 23rd, maybe. And at any rate, it'll be the third Thursday and then Wednesday.
There we go.
We'll be back together again on the following Wednesday, which is the 31st. So that's going to be another opportunity for lots of interaction, finding out more about advancing nurse coaching. And in the following weeks, the question and answer office hours will be coming to you. So we very much are looking forward to being with you on both of those occasions. Any last words, Teresa? Just a couple of minutes.
No, just if you have questions, if you're watching this as a replay and you have questions, please email us. We're happy to answer emails and connect with us. You can even schedule a call if you would like to talk the program and this kind of coaching. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
And as Teresa mentioned earlier, our video from last week is on YouTube, and our YouTube is Advancing Nurse Coaching. So you'll be able to find us there. My goodness, Tanya, thank you. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Denmark to be with us this morning. And I know it's evening there, but we so appreciate the opportunity now that we have to connect with other nurses worldwide in regard to sharing the knowledge of nursing that is being understood now as a much wider perspective. And I just can't thank you enough for being with us today. Everybody who was here and those who are listening later. Thank you so much. We'll have
Thank you so much. You too.
All right. Bye for now.
see you next
Bye. See you next time.
Okay.